Welcome everyone to the Midweek Moisky News for November the 11th, 2020. Today we're going to be talking about the House of Lords and Reform UK. So to start with the House of Lords, we should talk about recent votes that they have taken that have in turn negatively impacted the UK government, but also shine a light on the kind of power they actually have. So the UK government suffered a defeat in the House of Lords over its Brexit legislation. The Internal Market Bill is alleged to contain overruling parts of the UK's Brexit agreement with the EU. The House of Lords, by votes of 433 to 165, voted to remove a section that would allow ministers to break international law, allegedly. They also passed a motion to remove a number of bills and clauses of it, without even bothering to vote, because they all agreed they shouldn't be there. But they also removed a clause that allowed the UK to override parts of the agreement concerning Northern Ireland, again by a resounding majority. Many Conservative peers, 44 to be exactly, one of whom was in fact Conservative Party leader at one point, Lord Howard, have asked that the UK government think again about these contentious parts of the UK Internal Market Bill. However, a spokesperson for the UK government has said, "We are going to retable these clauses when the bill returns to the Commons. We have been consistently clear that the clauses represent a legal safety net to protect the integrity of the UK's internal market and the huge gains of the peace process. We expect the House of Lords to recognise that we have an obligation to the people of Northern Ireland to make sure they continue to have unfettered access to the UK under all circumstances. This bill will more than likely reach the Commons again in December, and this because they're just going to retable those clauses anyway, tells us the House of Lords has no real power on this. They're going to keep doing it, regardless, and they'll retable it in December, because negotiations end within the next 2 weeks. If no deal has been agreed upon, they'll push this through even earlier. So I guess we should now talk about what are the issues in the Internal Market Bill that has caused such a stir. Article 4 of the agreement, the withdrawal agreement that is, says the provisions of the treaty take legal precedence over anything in the UK's domestic law. So if any proposals in the Internal Market Bill contradict the withdrawal agreement, it would therefore breach the UK government's international obligations. But then there is still a debate over whether or not the UK's Internal Market Bill would do such a thing if no deal happened. That said, I do like this idea that the EU can protect their single market, but we, the UK, are not afforded the same option when we are ourselves 4 nations. Okay, nice bit of selective elitism. Cool. So on Northern Ireland, the aim was to avoid a return to a hard land border, to protect the Good Friday Agreement, to prevent any more wars. Both sides agreed they did not want border checks or other physical infrastructure that could then become a target. So one of the solutions was to keep Northern Ireland in the EU single market for goods, unlike the rest of the UK, but give Northern Ireland the opportunity to vote out of that at suitable intervals. Every 4 years, I think it was, or 5. So the problem here is, if a deal is not agreed upon at the end of the transition period on December 31st, there will be no free trade deal. The protocol states that companies moving goods from Northern Ireland to England, Scotland or Wales have to fill out export declaration forms. But the Internal Market Bill would give ministers the right to overrule or ignore this part of EU customs law, along with an additional protocol saying the UK has to follow EU rules on state aid. So the financial support governments give to businesses for goods related to Northern Ireland. The Internal Market Bill would then give powers to ministers to interpret that it means that this should not be done in accordance with the case law of the European Court of Justice. There are additional issues when it comes to the finance aspect part of the bill, but that isn't relevant to this, so I'm going to save that for another day. Instead, I'm going to move on to Nigel Farage. I personally like Nigel Farage because he's blunt, honest, speaks his mind and will argue with anyone, and usually he'll win. I'd like to see him have a proper argument with Jacob Rees-Mogg, but only because I'd like to see somebody who is very loud and abrasive with somebody who's very calm and snarky. It would be quite entertaining. As many know, Nigel Farage was a UKIP MEP. Before we left, he also changed to the Brexit Party because he couldn't support UKIP, and he wanted true reform to happen via leaving, and the Brexit Party made huge gains at last year's European elections. Since then, though, since we've left, he's mostly done his interviews, LBC show, radio show, and other various speeches, interviews, appearances on TV to usually be cannon fodder for those on the right. Yes, the naughty people on the right, the bad people. Well, Nigel Farage is making a return to politics. Courtesy of the Brexit Party, he and whoever it is that runs the party, whose name I've completely forgotten, are changing the party name and the direction they go to Reform UK, to a party that is being dubbed anti-lockdown. One of the first and major things that they themselves are supporting is supporting the Great Barrington Declaration. The Great Barrington Declaration wants a return to normal life and scrapping of coronavirus restrictions, but the party has said that only vulnerable members of society should shield from the corona-chan. The article I've linked down below is from the Daily Express, and they did a poll. Over 16,000 people voted in this poll, and over 74% said yes, they would vote for Reform UK at the next general election, which doesn't really mean much, because that doesn't get them any majority in the majority of constituencies. Since they'd need to do quite a lot, secure a lot of funding, it's quite tricky. But I am liking the fact that much like Lawrence Fox, others are now looking to put their feet in the political waters and muddy it a little. Try and push out the near two-party system we have in favour of actual carnage, which I'm okay with, and I will make it a point in the near future to go through some key policies of Reform UK, formerly the Brexit Party, so that you, the lovely, lovely audience, can make up your own mind if they are a party you can support, or if it's just something that Nigel Farage's name is going to carry to defeat.